What is going on, Guardians? We're back with the final installment of the Stasis Spotlight. I know this one's being done a little bit later on, but I've been doing some other stuff. Classes just kind of started back up, so today we're going to be talking about the Hunter Revenant Stasis Subclass, and we're going to basically go through Bungie's preview of it and talk about some of the abilities of the class as well as the fragments and aspects. And then at the end, they actually talk about the 3 different grenades that Stasis subclasses are going to be able to use. So we'll chat about those really quick. So this first section, Finding the Fantasy, they basically discuss how they create subclasses and how they go about establishing kind of an idea before building out the actual subclass. So for the Warlock, it was very early on established that they wanted to create an ice wizard, which is very obvious in the way they went about it. The Warlock gets to hold a staff at some points. He shoots ice out of the staff and things like that, so that makes sense. For the Hunter, they're going with the ninja archetype, and basically the class is going to be about, probably once again, similar to all classes, being able to move really fast, stressing movement, as well as being able to slow your enemies. That's a huge part of the Stasis Hunter subclass. So going into the melee, the Hunter's Revenant melee attack is called Withering Blade. The player throws a deadly stasis shuriken into the fight. It ricochets off surfaces and enemies, slowing and damaging them along the way. Land 2 shuriken on the same target, and that enemy will be instantly frozen. So we saw this in the Gamescom clip of a Hunter throwing the shurikens off of the wall on Midtown and bouncing it around and hitting some enemies and instantly freezing them. And so that's going to be a large part of the Hunter subclass, is once again another ranged melee, being able to throw it similar to like a throwing knife or something, and hitting your targets is going to be very important. So being able to aim your throwing knives is going to be important. When fully charged with ability energy, the Hunter can unleash their deadly super, Silence and Squall. So this super is not a roaming super like it seems like the other 2 supers are going to be. This is going to be like a one cast. You're going to throw both of your comma blades, and the blades each do different things. So the first blade, when thrown, immediately detonates on impact, freezing enemies in a radius from the center of the blast. So you don't necessarily have to hit an enemy, you just have to hit an area around the enemy, and then you'll freeze them with the first throw of the blade, or with the first knife, and then hurl Squall, which is the second blade, and it will embed itself in a surface, and then detonate, creating a stasis storm that'll track nearby enemies, slowing and damaging them as it makes contact. So this is a little bit interesting because I don't think this is on any of the other subclasses, but when we talk about the grenades, it also brings up a tracking element. But if this is tracking enemies, I can imagine it almost like going after them like a little blizzard almost, and then when it hits them, it makes them frozen. I think this subclass, based on what we've read and what we've seen, could be pretty cool. It's going to be very similar to a Blade Barrage in the super aspect. So I think depending on the AoE explosion radiuses of the super, that'll determine how much it gets used in PvP. Because the slowing and freezing aspects in PvP seems really powerful on all the Stasis subclasses. And getting into one of the fragments and things that the Hunter can spec for, they talk about a dodge that I assume when you dodge near an enemy, it slows the enemy. They say the dodge slows the enemy, so I assume you have to be relatively close to the enemy for that to affect. I don't think you can dodge across the map and free stuff. But I think a lot of this stuff in the Stasis subclasses in general are going to be really powerful in PvP, because movement speed and being able to move around the map quickly is a huge portion of Destiny 2. So hopefully Bungie gets the balancing aspects right on those things. Otherwise in PvE, Tether is still just so powerful that I don't know if this replaces something like that, but it could, so who knows. So here is the section on the dodge. It seems like it's going to be an aspect, so a hunter-specific slow dodge aspect that will allow the Revenant to temporarily slow nearby enemies each time they perform a dodge. So again, I assume it's if you're close to the enemy you're dodging nearby, but I assume this could affect PvP players, and that could be really powerful if you go into a dodge, slow them down, and then come out of your dodge with, let's say, like a shotgun. That could be pretty good. Alright, so let's get into the aspects and the fragments. Again, if you haven't seen the Warlock Shadebinder explanation, that's where they kind of go into detail about aspects and fragments, but basically they're extra ways to customize your subclass. So for the Shatter Dive, activate while midair to quickly descend and shatter nearby targets on impact. I think that the terminology shatter refers to frozen enemies, so I think in order to shatter a frozen enemy, they have to be frozen, but when you do shatter them, it will kill them. And then Whisper of Hedrons is a fragment. Gain a bonus to weapon damage after freezing a target with stasis, and minus 10 to strength. So you're giving up a little strength here to get bonus weapon damage. That seems pretty strong. I think that for fragments, they are going to be across all the stasis subclasses, whereas the aspects are character specific. I think that's how it's going to work. Finally, let's just touch on the grenades really quickly. The first one is the Glacier Grenade. Upon contact with the ground, a wall of stasis crystals instantly bursts from the earth, and nearby enemies are frozen inside the stasis crystal. These grenades have multiple uses, from encasing enemies to creating cover, and when destroyed, they create an AoE burst of damage to nearby enemies. So, pretty good grenade. Sounds pretty interesting. It depends on how big these crystal walls are going to be, and then it could be used as a way to create cover as well. The Cold Snap Grenade says, upon impact with the ground or an enemy, this grenade unleashes a wave of stasis energy that races along the ground in the direction of the closest nearby enemy, freezing them and then searching for the next nearby foe. You can freeze up to 3 enemies with a single Cold Snap Grenade. So this to me sounds kind of like a thermite grenade, but with a little bit of bonus tracking. This is the other section of the tracking that Bungie has talked about with stasis, and these seem pretty good. I think this is going to be the grenade I end up using when I play Warlock. Or I could be using the Dustfield Grenade. The Dustfield Grenade creates powerful stasis fields that suck enemies into them when forming. Once an enemy is caught inside, they'll be slowed. If unable to make it out in time, frozen in place. This seems like it could be pretty decent in PvP, and you could throw them at cap zones or throw them at choke points and like just slow your enemies down. And when they're that slow and they have trouble moving, they're really easy to kill because it doesn't require much aim and they don't have much of their movement. So overall, I'm really excited for the stasis subclasses. I'm just a little concerned about how powerful they're going to be on release, but I think that's also the fun of it. We've always had some broken subclasses on release of a new expansion, so I think that, once again, will be really fun. I just hope it's the Warlock, because that's the one I main. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed the last spotlight. I'm getting a little bit back into Destiny, although it's just right now it's kind of dry, so I've been able to take a break and play other games, and yeah, so hope you guys enjoy. I'll be back with another video soon, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!